to any of you folks in California, or I don't know if we have anybody from Hawaii, but if we do, I say aloha. And I had to say it because it's raining here in Minnesota, even though it's spring. I am Todd Obert, President and CEO of Productive Corporation, joined here virtually, physically down the hall by our VP of Sales and Technology, Mr. Pete Greco. And today we are going to be dropping some knowledge. Now, I think some of you probably know this. We're just going to talk about our experiences with our customers, which I'll show you Meet Productive in 1 minute, but we have thousands of customers across tons of verticals all across the United States and Canada, ranging from 25 to 50 employees up to Fortune 100 in our portfolio. So we have a wide array of experience, and hopefully we're going to share that with you today. In fact, we heard from a bunch of customers that they wanted to hear more about this. And so this is just an insight onto what we see, what is our kind of look at layered network security, and where we've seen guys doing it right, and where sometimes some guys miss some things or aren't aware of. They think they're covered. So we're going to talk about that. Utilize your chat feature. That makes it really interesting. If you have some esoteric or obtuse network question, throw it at Pete, because I like to see him struggle. He is, between the two, he's much smarter than I am, but he's going to field the questions. So let's see how smart he is. With that, let's meet Productive in 1 minute. Who is Productive Corporation, say you? Well, Productive is a security and storage software expert for mid-sized companies. We have dedicated account execs, so that if you're looking for specialized knowledge, we can answer your licensing and technical questions. You don't have to wait on hold at the publisher or navigate www yourself. We have tons of resources on our website, everything from product descriptions, demos, trials, downloads, white papers, etc. for the publishers we represent, all of this at productivecorp.com. We also have specific mid-market content that we contrast and compare different trends going on, whether it be network security, endpoint, MDM. All of this is in videos and 2-minute tech guides. Find this at productivecorp.com/content. The bottom line is we have the resources to help you. Help at productivecorp.com, 800-726-4099. We are here to help. And by we, I mean myself, Pete, and the team. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing for over a dozen years and have been very successful in this space. We are a great advocate for you. With the vendor, we can show you a great range of solutions and really find the right fit for you and your environment. So with that, let's start talking about network security. We are going to turn it over to Mr. Pete Greco, and where's nice. Thank you, Mr. Shaw, for picking up the typo on there. I think that should have been Detroit on the agenda slide there, but great catch. Anyway, we're going to turn this over to Pete Greco, who is our VP of Sales and Technology. Pete has not only run the sales team and the technical teams, but works with thousands of our customers and has seen all sorts of environments, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So with a warm virtual round of applause and a Clint Eastwood soundtrack, let's welcome Mr. Pete Greco.
Oh, gunslinger. There we go. I like it. All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for hopping on board with us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. We are not going to take up the entire afternoon. We're going to get right into this as soon as I show my screen. We'll see if I'm actually going to show my screen. There we go. It's just going to take a second here for my screen to refresh. And we're going to talk about some stuff at a high level. And if we're hitting on any points that are something that you're concerned about or nervous about or have been thinking about or have been struck by, make sure you let us know, and we can talk about how to help you keep moving in the right direction. Boy, I'm just struggling here with the go-to meeting. It's spinning, spinning, spinning. Hopefully we can still see, excuse me, Todd's screen. Hey,
can you see mine? I'm on the Why Do Attacks Happen?
Well, I'll just navigate there as well. We'll kick it off while I'm waiting for the show my screen to actually work. So I can't tell if anybody else can see your screen. Is the problem? But we'll start the conversation at least. Todd, you might need to take back control. I'm not entirely sure.
I have done that.
What's going on? Perfect. So why do attacks keep happening? This is a never-ending conversation and a never-ending topic to continue to get updated on. The number one reason why attacks keep happening is because guys are making money doing it. It's really become the next phase of organized crime. It's no longer walking into a coffee shop, a bar, a shoe store, or whatever, and threatening to break the windows or cause accidents or whatever if you're not paying your protection. It's really that organized crime has moved into the virtual world. Obviously, there's still a lot of physical crime out there with drugs and everything else, right? But this is kind of the new bootlegging, if you will. Guys are able to get in, get information, get stuff that can be sold in mass quantities, even at a low rate, but sold in mass quantities to make money. And we've heard a lot of stories about guys literally having garbage cans or barrels full of cash from the dough that they're making from being virtual criminals. And so why are we continuing to let it happen to us, right? And this is what we're really talking about on this slide. A lot of folks just simply can't see what's going on. And if you look at the Target attack, right, from a couple months ago, they actually were able to see and identify. They had the right technology to stop the attack. One of the main issues is nobody was monitoring it. So even if you have the right tools, if you're not looking at them, right, problematic. Now, a lot of folks, especially as we get into the mid-size and definitely the small size space, typically we see a lot of folks lacking any kind of zero-day protection, very much in a reactive mode with a straight AV, and not taking advantage of additional features or not looking for the correct product that has the additional features that they might need. We'll be talking about some of that stuff as we move forward. And what a lot of folks run into is they really look at the upfront cost of implementing new solutions or additional solutions to give them the protection that they need, but what they start missing out on is the cost of reactivity, right? So they start looking at, bumping up that firewall to a UTM, big expense there, but they're not looking at the potential savings from bandwidth savings and from additional protection that's going to prevent potential costly downtime. And the cost of downtime or the cost of reactivity always outweighs the cost of being proactive. Todd, let's hop on to the next slide and talk about some of these threats. And these are just from March. I want to be real clear. These brief examples, they're all from datalostdb.org. If you haven't ever heard of that site or checked out that site, pretty interesting information on there. Every example that we have listed here is just from March of 2014. So this is not stuff that is obsolete or out of date or whatever. And so we'll start at the top. Stolen.
How do they get this info? I mean, we're not exposing anybody that didn't want to be exposed. I want to be clear on that, right? I mean,
we're not exposing anybody that didn't want to be exposed. How most of these folks exposed is they basically had to self-expose.
Yeah. Yep.
Because they have compliance issues or created enough of a situation that they had to start notifying people. And
totally.
When you send your first customer a letter saying, I've lost some of your personally identifiable information, you'll see us use the PII acronym in case you're not aware. Personally identifiable information is what that stands for, right? You're basically alerting anybody. So was that their preference? Absolutely not. And a lot of these could have been avoided fairly basically. Sutherland, great example. This was actually a smash and grab. Todd, somebody broke into, I think it was one of their clinics, and grabbed a machine. Now, the issue is that machine probably, not definitely, probably contained personal information on it. They didn't know for sure, and that triggered the requirement for them to start notifying everybody. Now, they also had encryption, but they didn't know if the machine that was stolen had been encrypted. So, again, this is a situation where lacking visibility. They didn't necessarily not have the right stuff. They just didn't know for sure if they were using that stuff in an appropriate way, and the result was up to 224,000 records lost. So
Pete, why don't you try to take back control now, see if that works here, because that'll make it smoother on your end.
Yeah, I'm actually just totally locked up with with GoToMeeting.
I will not try to pass you control. How's
yeah,
that?
my only choice is to close the program, and I'm afraid I'm going to actually get disconnected if I click on anything here. So I'd say let's just roll through here, and we'll make sure we give a good show for these folks.
All right,
so,
cool.
Back to the cost of reactivity here. Right now, these guys had to notify in writing 224,000 customers. So if we just add up the cost of stamps alone, right, you're talking about a pretty significant cost, because it doesn't change the fact that they need encryption, that they need good gateway protection, that they need good physical security, obviously. Right, they still have to do all that stuff, and now they're paying a big fee on top of that. And you're losing trust. And healthcare is definitely an area where people are expecting a high amount of trust. That's where Target is a little bit different. You go to Target to buy toilet paper and cleansers and blankets and pillows and whatever else you might need. You typically don't feel like you need to have a trust relationship with a retail store the way that you feel like you need to have a trust relationship with your doctor's office, right? Another, and I hate to laugh at anybody who runs into issue, but Metro Transit Authority, and I think these guys are in the Northwest if I remember correctly, they actually donated a bunch of old machines, which we're getting ready to do. They donated a bunch of old machines, and somebody bought one of those machines that had a CD in the drive. Still. So it was as basic as they probably formatted the hard drives, but nobody actually opened up the trays to see what data was in there. They weren't encrypting CDs. They had a pretty good idea what kind of information was on that CD, and ended up in 15,000 records being lost or exposed. Right? We've got web attacks. We've got malware intrusions, and there's not one thing that stops a lot of this stuff. It's a multi-vectored approach or a layered approach, and that's what we're really talking about on this web event. Archdiocese of Seattle, they actually found out from their parishioners that they had an issue when a huge amount of their parishioners were scammed in some kind of a tax scam. It sounds like somebody was posing as the IRS collecting money from a lot of these folks.
In a scam?
Yeah, and their information was all gathered from this intrusion. the diocese actually did not find out about it until they were alerted by their parishioners. So again, lack of visibility.
So we see this, right? I mean, I think it's, right, it's a little bit like, we don't want to sound like the boy who cried wolf. I mean, you guys do know these attacks are real. I mean, it's just, I think sometimes we forget that this stuff is actually happening all the time, and we become a little bit immune to it given the business that we're in, but I think that's a good thing. But let's keep kicking on here and see what, kind of get to the next phase here. You ready to rock?
Let's hit that next slide, and talk about what some of these attacks specifically are, right? Ransomware is a big one that's going around, and a lot of folks are probably very familiar with the crypto locker. And we were at a security event down in Des Moines, Iowa. I think that was in March, maybe it was tail end of February, and I talked to 3 different folks who had been hit by crypto locker, which is basically encrypting files on a machine, and you have to pay a fee to get them unencrypted, and if you don't do it within 3 days or 2 days, your data is lost forever. Right? So problematic there. Talked to one guy who'd lost 250 gigs. They're an advertising agency, 250 gigs out of 1 terabyte of video data that they were going to have to go back and essentially recreate. They were able to restore about 750 gigs from backup. 250 gigs totally lost. The expense of that had him at that show talking to guys like me trying to figure out what else should we be doing. Big Mac organization, coincidentally. A lot of folks think that Macs are immune. Not the case at all. Right? So City of Detroit hit with ransomware, started with an employee linking an email. So right from there, could have probably stopped that with a real solid email security solution that might have prevented that email from even reaching that destination. So it did. What's our next step in defense? Looking at something that would actually be monitoring the web traffic, so that link is going to take them back to a website. So web content filtering could have helped us out there, and web security scanning could have helped us out there, and network intrusion prevention could have helped us out there. 3 different areas where we potentially could have blocked this attack from happening. And City of Detroit now has leaked 1,700 employee files with personal information, and that's a city that's already struggling with employee satisfaction and to keep folks around and keep them doing what they need to be doing under all kinds of budget constraints and this kind of stuff. And so what they didn't need any help is creating employee dissatisfaction, and they just got it thanks to 1 email that creates an issue. They're also very budget constrained. Now they're paying for free credit monitoring. Right? So this is the kind of stuff where that cost of reactivity starts becoming tremendously great. Todd, let's take a look at the next slide here and talk about, when we're talking about a layered approach, what are we really talking about? A lot of folks will end this at the endpoint security conversation, and they'll say, well, my workstation antivirus has intrusion prevention, and I'm doing a couple other things there, so I'm good. I am taking a layered approach. But you really need to be looking at all aspects of the organization, and that's going to include the gateway and the peripheral, right? Also includes physical security. We're not really talking about that today, but also includes physical security, and then does include the endpoint. And so you can see here we got a bunch of little categories, and we're going to get into these kind of one by one here and knock these out. So Todd, let's start with the gateway. And if you hit that first click, the folder with the padlock on it, data encryption. And a couple years ago, you were really only seeing folks who had HIPAA or SOX or FARC or FISMA or some of these compliance requirements thinking about encryption. But it has become a relatively more straightforward technology for everybody to be taken advantage of. And even if you don't want to use it internally on your workstations and your file servers and this kind of stuff, don't feel like you have the need to encrypt that internal data. If you're putting stuff up into Dropbox, if you're putting stuff onto laptops that are going to leave, onto thumb drives, that's stuff that you definitely want to have an encryption policy so that you can make sure, even if you can't control the data that's that's leaving the organization, if somebody does grab one of those devices or somebody does end up hacking Dropbox or Amazon or CrashPlan or any of these cloud guys, right, and are actually accessing that data from the back end, your data is unusable to them. And the real cost of some of this virtual theft is not the loss of the gear, right? You lose a thumb drive, you can replace. I just bought an 8 gig thumb drive for like $7, right? You can replace that pretty easily. Now the data that I put on that thumb drive worth well more than $7, and that's what we're talking about here, right? So you can do that kind of encryption at the gateway, and that can include email encryption as well. And we really have some neat solutions that where the typical end user, not talking about you folks, the IT crowd, but the typical end user can figure out how to encrypt an email and send it to another non-technical person who's going to be able to read it. Todd, let's take a look at the sirens. And now we're talking about network-based intrusion prevention. This is really your zero-day prevention system. And at the network level, we're trying to stop stuff like a configure, for example, from traveling all throughout the network. That's something that we can typically see as a standalone system, you know, like the open source Snort, or you know, definitely what we're recommending just from an ease of management standpoint is that this is something that you're doing at the firewall level as part of a UTM. Todd, let's take a look at the file folder, application control, and kind of two different meanings here. And this can be confusing for some folks because a lot of people are thinking about blocking applications from getting installed on the workstations and laptops and that kind of stuff. At the gateway, what we're really talking about is being able to control how applications can communicate outside the firewall. And again, this is another area that could help us with something like configure. So IPS can help us there. Application control can actually block configure communications. And so even if we're not able to eradicate the threat, we can prevent it from communicating sensitive data off of the environment. Right? We kind of talked a little bit about email security. That can include encryption, but also can include the ability to block emails that contain threats from coming in and outbound threats, right? So you bring in something that's going to infect your email on a thumb drive or a CD or on a laptop that comes in through the front door. We want to make sure that that email security is bidirectional. I really don't talk to too many folks who aren't doing anti-spam on the inbound. When you ask the follow-up question, are you doing bidirectional anti-spam? Well, why would we do that? If one of your endpoints gets set up as a mail relay, now you're a spammer, and if you haven't been on a blacklist yet, it is no fun trying to get off of that. And there is not a handbook that is going to guide you through how to get unblacklisted, and it's going to start with figuring out if you're still an email spammer, clearing that up before you can even begin to go about getting delisted. And if it happens to you twice, you're blacklisted for life. So pretty challenging and very costly, especially concerned.
As we found out, Pete, right, I mean, it's the people who actually make the decision on these things are not really employees, right? I mean, it's a community of some guys decide that you're a spammer, right?
Correct.
I mean,
yeah.
it's not, and if you get kind of tagged that way, right or wrong, you really have to go through and disprove.
Well, that's a great way to put it, Todd. Right or wrong, once you're tagged, you're tagged. And whether it was completely false or not, you are tagged. And that's the end of the story on that. And it's a lot of work and a lot of expense to go about getting delisted. You know, and so web security becomes that next thing. As we're filtering websites, right, a lot of people are thinking about employee productivity, and they're thinking about risk management from the standpoint of someone doing a lawsuit because they got offended by something, and that's a part of it. But we're also talking about web scanning that traffic. A lot of threats are coming in from legitimate business websites that are getting compromised because they know this is where people are going. So people are going to Amazon and they are going to CNN, but they're going to lots and lots of different kinds of business sites, and there's tons of stats out there talking about 80 to 90% of all websites have been compromised at some point in time. And some of that can include stealing data from those websites, and some of it is putting malware on those sites that you are basically getting in a, they refer to that as a drive-by, right? So you swing onto that website, you're downloading that malware, now your network is getting infected and you're spreading that infection all throughout. Again, a lot of this stuff here can be handled through different point solutions in the cloud. One of the easy ways to manage all of this stuff is via a UTM, where you can get a common interface to manage all of these components. Todd, let's hop on to the endpoint slide here, and you're going to see some of the same icons. And this is where I thought that this presentation would be hopefully real interesting for you folks to kind of get you thinking about it in two different categories. But we're really talking about some of the same stuff. So, we'll start at the top here again with encryption. And so now we're actually talking about, it can be talking about device encryption, like a thumb drive, or encrypting CDs or your backups, very important. But also the ability to do full disk or file and folder. If you have a lot of internal sensitive data, if somebody gets in either through the front door or through the gateway, you want to make sure that that data is non-accessible. Somebody loses a laptop, again, you want to make sure that that data is non-accessible. And these encryption products can be fairly easy for the admin team to get it installed. That's definitely something that Productive can help with. A lot of our folks simply don't have the time. It's not that they don't have the expertise, but they don't have the time. That's something that we can help you with. But from an end user standpoint, all they're doing is logging in, and a lot of these now have an SSO type feature. So once you decrypt the disk, you're automatically logged into Windows. Now, you can keep it as two-factor. If you like that extra security, you can do a lot of user self-reset and that kind of stuff. So when you have people in the field who are forgetting their passwords or whatever, they could be on their own as far as remediating and resetting their password with a bunch of challenge questions and this kind of stuff, right? But it's going to be very easy for them. This isn't they got to manage keys or do all this kind of stuff. And so the level of protection that it gives you, right, and today's encryption products are much, much lower cost than what they were a couple years ago, or certainly 5 years ago. It really becomes a no-brainer, right? Device control. So forget about encryption for a second. Do you have the need for folks to be plugging USB devices into their machines? If you don't, let's block those. Why take the risk? And that's my first priority, is to figure out what do I not even need. And this is what I'm doing with my web filter. This is what I'm doing with device control. Some folks don't need to go to these websites. Let's not run the risk of having to have our AV or our IPS fire up. Let's block it from getting access. And I got a lot of folks that don't need to access thumb drives or their CD drives. We simply block that so we don't even run the risk of bringing in a rootkit or some other kind of malware off of a device that's been at a customer environment or been at home or been wherever. Right? Now here, when we're talking about application control, we're talking about actually blocking applications from running. And this does a couple of different things. Prevents your end users from getting anything installed that you don't know about and can't patch. That's a huge area for vulnerabilities. Right off the top is applications that contain vulnerabilities that are not getting patched, maybe because we don't have a good patch mechanism, maybe because we don't know that they exist. Right? And even if you have a great patch solution, still might not be able to patch every single product that's out there. And so if we can do a good job of whitelisting and blacklisting applications, that's really going to help us raise our security posture. And then the final piece here, web security. Now, we showed this at the gateway, and what I like is when all my folks are in the office, I want them going through that central point at the gateway where I can have all my policies in. But then what I like is what happens when they leave. Now they're in the Wild West. I want my web security to follow them, and I can do that with endpoint protection and with a nice out-of-office policy where that only gets enabled when they're gone, and when they're here, they're going back through my central gateway. Gives me a lot of visibility and a lot of control, and a lot of capability for being able to enhance that protection, whether they're here or whether they're out of the office. So let's go to this, I guess it's not the final slide, but we're almost there. What can we take away from this, right? You can't just be doing one thing, and a lot of folks are there. You can't just worry about the endpoint, and we have a lot of folks that are there as well. Right? So we really need to be focused on securing that endpoint and securing the gateway. We definitely like a multi-vendor strategy. That way you have some diversity around the environment where one R&D group might not be aware of a threat yet. Hopefully the next one is, and we can stop threats wherever we have the chance to stop them. Right? One of the interesting things about security is everybody can be 100% secure if we just unplug all the technology, right? But that's not going to get business done. We want things to be available. They can be completely available for a short time if we don't have any security. So we got to walk the line of figuring out what gives me the best protection with the most availability, right? And that's something where Productive can help you find that medium. I need to be locked down, but I still need to be able to work. I still need access, and we can help you figure out how to get there. And then really our final point, and this is not a hard point to go out and prove. And again, it's something we love getting into the conference room with you folks and those CFOs and helping you make your case that it is way cheaper to make these investments up front than to come back and try and recover from an attack. And we've seen studies saying that it's as little as $2.50 for remediation for every dollar that you spend, and I've seen them as high as $10 for every dollar for the cost of remediation. So way more costly, and a lot of times when we get those business guys thinking about it in a business way, we can help you get the tools that you need to keep your environment secure and up and running. All right, T.O., I have nothing else to say. If these folks have any questions, I'd love to answer them. And otherwise, we're looking forward to talking to them on future Productive webinars.
Absolutely, and fantastic job. Did you actually breathe the whole time you presented, or is that just one exhale?
Didn't need to. One exhale.
I like that. I like that a lot. That was fantastic. Really appreciate that presentation, and really, more importantly, we hope you guys found it interesting as well. Your Productive Corporation account exec is going to follow up with you, right? Obviously, we got a nice little thing for you to send out for attending, which we will get on, but they're going to follow up, make sure they have all your info, and really, if you want to have a discussion, either kind of high level like this, where we can get Pete involved, or more detailed around a solution area that you wanted to kind of get into, let us know. This is what we do. It's what we've been doing for a long time, and have helped a lot of organizations. So with that, really appreciate your time today. We know you have a lot of other things you could be doing, and the fact that you spent that time with us is much appreciated. Thanks again, Pete. Thank you guys for attending. I'm Todd Obert from Productive Corp signing off. I hope you guys have a fantastic balance of your day and week. Talk to you soon.
Thanks everybody.